This stretch of Park Avenue on the Upper East Side of Manhattan is the wealthiest neighborhood in New York City. This is where the people at the top of the ladder live, the upper crust, the ultra-rich. But this street is about a lot more than money. It's about political power. The rich here haven't just used their money to buy fancy cars, private jets, and mansions. They've also used it to rig the game in their favor. But if you head north for about 10 minutes, this Park Avenue comes to an end at the Harlem River. On the other side of the water, there is another Park Avenue. This is the South Bronx, home to America's poorest congressional district. There are 700,000 people in this district. Almost 40% of them live in poverty, making less than $40 a day. They've lost their jobs in the recession caused by bankers across the river. They've watched their children struggle in failing schools, and they've ended up even worse off than they were a generation ago.
Get that money up here.
But America is still a land of opportunity, isn't it? But in today's America, what are the chances that someone who starts their life on this Park Avenue will end up living on this Park Avenue?
Mobility in the United States lags most other advanced industrial democracies.
When I was growing up, the image of America and the self-image was of a vast middle-class country. Of course, there was a small, rich group, and there were some poor, but America prided itself and understood that its health was because of a vast middle class. We're not that kind of society anymore.
There's always been a gap between the wealthiest in our society and everyone else. But in the last 30 years, something changed. That gap became the Grand Canyon.
The incomes of people at the lower end stagnated. And disproportionate amount of the growth in the economy has accrued to those at the upper end.
This is what America's economic pie looked like in the decades after World War II. Income gains were shared by everyone, with big portions going to average Americans. But since the late 1970s, the bottom 90% have seen their share of the pie completely devoured by the top 1%.
The wealthy are getting an enormous percentage of all of the gains in the entire economy. When I talk about the wealthy, I'm talking about like in the thousands of people.
Thousands might be overstating it. As of 2010, only 400 of the richest Americans controlled more wealth than the bottom half of American households. That's 150 million people. The question is, what are the people at the top going to do with all that money?
I came here today to hear Dr. Kim, the president of the World Bank, to hear his perspectives on world poverty and really how he hopes to change that.
The first goal is to end extreme poverty by 2030. With the end of extreme poverty within our grasp, we want to set an aggressive timeline to focus our efforts and maintain a sense of urgency. But we know that ending poverty is not enough. We must also work to boost the incomes of the poorest 40% of the population in each country. The World Bank Group will be there to help countries end poverty and boost shared prosperity in at least 4 ways. First, we'll use these goals to help us choose among competing priorities as we identify which projects we can have the greatest impact. Second, we will closely monitor and observe progress towards these goals of ending poverty and boosting shared prosperity, and we'll report annually on what's been achieved and where gaps remain. Third, we'll use our convening and advocacy power to continually remind policymakers and the international community what it will take to realize these goals. Finally, we'll work with our partners to share knowledge on solutions to end poverty and promote shared prosperity. A sustainable world where all households have access to clean energy. A world where everyone has enough to eat. A world where no one dies from preventable diseases. A world free of poverty.